In this lecture, we are going to work on creating courses in our Firebase database using NGRX effect. So let's go to VS Code, and in the last lecture, we created this courses service file and we created this courses effect file. Now inside this course service file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new method called createCourse. This method is going to receive a course object of type course, and to use this course model we also need to import it, and from within this we are going to make a post request. So in here, let's also go ahead and let's inject an instance of HttpClient. So here the type is going to be HttpClient, and to use it we also need to import it. Okay, so from within this we are going to make a post request. So for that we can say this dot http dot post, and this post method, it is going to return us an observable. We are going to return that observable from here. Now to this post method, we need to pass two things. First, we need to pass the URL to which we want to make this post request. And second, we also need to pass the request body for this post request. Now for the URL, if I go to our Firebase database, this is the URL of our database. And this URL is already saved in the environment file. So if I go to environment.ts file, there inside this Firebase config, you will see that we have this property called database URL. And this database URL is storing the URL of our Firebase database. So I'm going to use this property. So let's go to CourseService.ts, and here I'm going to create a URL property, a URL variable, and to get the URL here, I'm going to use the template literal syntax, and in there, first I'm going to export environments object from the environment.ts file. In that object, we have this Firebase config property, and inside that we have database URL. This is going to return us the URL of our Firebase database. Basically, it is going to return this URL. Now, this is our database URL. In that database, we want to create a collection. So after that URL, we will say slash, and then we will specify a collection name. I'm going to call the collection as courses. And here, we also need to use .json extension. Okay, so in our database, a collection called courses will be created. And in that collection, we are going to store some courses. Okay, so this is going to be the URL to which we want to make the post request. Let's pass it here. And then as the request body, we are going to pass this course object. Okay. Now, from where we are going to call this create course? We want to call this create course method whenever we are going to create a new course. And we are going to create a new course when this create course button is clicked, right? So if I go to our application and if we go to course component.ts, when we want to create a course, we are dispatching this create course action. Now currently we are handling this create course action using a reducer. So if we go to courses reducer.ts file, there you will see that we are handling that create course action using a reducer. But now what I want is inside this courses action.ts, we already have this create course action. So let me move it to separate lines to make it more readable. All right, here we already have this create course action, but we want to handle this create course action by making an API call to our Firebase database. So we are going to handle this create course action using NGRX effect. We are not going to handle it using reducer function. And once a course is successfully created, we are going to dispatch another action, and I'm going to call that action as, so it should be const, and let's call that action as create course success. Okay, and again we are going to create an action for this using create action function. Here we are going to specify a type. Since we are going to apply this action on courses state, here I'll say courses, and then in the name I'll say create course success. All right. And as the payload, we are going to pass a course object. So I'm going to copy this props from here and let's specify it here. Okay, so this create course action, we want to handle it using NGRX effect, because in order to create a course, we are going to make some API calls. So since it involves API calls, it involves some side effect, we are going to handle it using NGRX effects. And once a course is successfully created in our Firebase database, we are going to dispatch this create course success action. And this create course success action, when it is dispatched, it should be handled by a reducer to update the course's state. So if we go to our reducer, there, instead of handling create course action, we are going to handle create course success action. And the logic is going to be same. We are not going to change anything here. And from here, let me remove this create course action because we are not using it inside this reducer file now. And what we also going to do is here, we don't need to write these two lines. Instead, when we are going to dispatch this create course success action, we are going to get a course object in this action, and in that course object, we will have an ID. So all I'm going to do is here, I'm simply going to add action.course. Let's save the changes here, and let's also save the changes here. Now let's go to courses effect.ts, and in here, now we are going to create an effect, and I'm going to call this effect as create course. And since it is going to store an observable, I'm going to use dollar after the name. And to create an effect, we are going to use create effect function. To this, we need to pass a callback function. And inside this callback function, first of all, we are going to access this actions. And on that, we are going to use pipe operator. And from within this actions, so this is going to store all the dispatched action. From the dispatched actions, we want to filter that action whose type is create course. Okay, so we also need to import this from actions file. And once we have filtered that action, here I'm going to use merge map. And to use it, we also need to import it. And to this, I'm going to pass a callback function. This callback function is going to receive the payload for the filtered action. So here I'm going to call the parameter as action, and this action is going to receive the payload of the dispatched action. In this case, the payload of the dispatched create course action. So from here, now we are going to call the course service, and to use the course service inside this file, we also want to inject an instance of course service. So I'll create a course service private variable, which is going to be of type course service. Okay, so here we will say this dot course service dot create course, and to this create course we need to pass a course object. That course object we can get from this payload. So here I can say action dot course. Okay, so this create course, it is going to return us an observable. We are going to return that from here, and we are also going to return this observable from here. Okay, so the observable which this create course is going to return us, on that again I'm going to call pipe operator, and inside that I'm going to use map operator. And this map operator, the callback function of this map operator is going to receive the data which has been returned by this create course method. So this create course method is going to return us an observable. That observable is going to emit some data. That data we are going to receive here. Now this data, it will look like an object where we will have a name property, and that name will store a unique key. So what I can do is, let's go to CourseService.ts. So basically this post method, in the response, what we are going to receive is, we are going to receive an object. In that object, we will have a name property, which is going to store a string value. And I'll show you what value it stores when we will create a new course. So that same type of response we are returning from here. So here we are returning an observable, and this observable is going to emit a data where we are going to have a name property of type string. Okay. So here inside this effect, what we are going to do is, first of all, if the course is successfully created, we will reach inside this map operator. So once we reach inside this map operator, that means the course is successfully created. In that case, we want to dispatch create course success action. So we also need to import it. So we want to dispatch this action. Now, when we are dispatching this action here, we need to specify a course object, and that course object should also have an ID property. So here I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it as course, and this is going to be of type course. And to create this course, here I'm going to create an object, and here I'm going to extract all the properties from action.course. So here I'll say action.course. Okay, so this course object which we are going to receive in the payload, it is going to have all the course properties except the ID. Now, from where we are going to get the ID for the course? So we are going to use the name property of this data. So as I said, for this data, we are going to receive an object like this, where we will have a name property and a string value. So that name property we are going to use as the ID. So here we are going to extract all the properties from the course object, and then we are going to add an ID, and this ID I'll set with data.name. Okay, and now this course we are going to assign to this course property, or since the name is same, I don't need to explicitly assign it. Now here, in order to use this course, we also need to import it, and also to use this map, we need to import it from RxJS. So this is when the course is created successfully. But what if an error has occurred? In that case, we are going to use this catchError operator, and to use it, we need to import it from RxJS. To this, I'm going to pass a callback function. Okay, this is going to receive the error object, so I'll simply call it as error. And from here, I'm going to dispatch another action, which is set error message. And to dispatch this action, first we also need to import it. And while dispatching this action, here we need to specify the message property. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to create a variable here, which I'll call as error message, or maybe I'll simply call it as message. And here, let's say something went wrong, course cannot be created. Okay, and we are going to pass this message as the error message. Now here we also need to return it, and from here it is expecting to return an observable. So I'm going to use this off operator, and to use this off operator, we also need to import it from RxJS. So let's import it, and let me pass this action to that off operator. All right, so the effect has been created. Let me save the changes here, and this effect we are raising from this add course component. So we are raising this create course effect when the create button is getting clicked. And with that, we are also passing the course data. And this course data also includes the course image URL. So we are reading the course image URL here, and we are setting that URL for this image property of this course form. So with this, let's save the changes. Let's check if we have any errors. You can see the application has been compiled successfully. Let's test if the course is getting created or not. And before that, what I'll also do is, let's go to our course state, and from there I'm going to remove these two courses, and I'm going to set this courses state as an empty array initially. Let's save the changes. Let's go to our application, and you will see that now in the UI we do not have any courses because initially the courses state is empty. Now let's go ahead and let's create a course, and to create a course, I'm going to copy this title from here, and let's paste it in the title. Let's also copy the description. Let's paste it inside this description box. Here for the author, let's say John Smith, and price, let's say 49.99, and let's select an image. Okay, so here I have selected javascript.jpg. With this, let's click on this create course button, and you can see a course has been created, but I do not see an image here. Let's go to Angular NGRX, and there you will see that a new collection course courses has been created, and in that courses collection we have one entry. So this here, this is the ID of our course. So this key, this is a string value, and for this key we have an object with author, description, price, and title property. So this key we are using as the ID for the course. Now here you will not see the image property. Let's see why is that. So here what I'll try to do is I'll comment this line for now, and I'll try to log this dot course form dot value. Okay, let's save the changes. Let's go to our application. Let me open developer console. Let's clear everything and let's try to create a course. So for example, test course, and let's browse a file. Let's click on open, and when I click on this create course button, for some reason image is coming undefined. So there is something wrong at this line in this method. Let's go inside this method. So let's go to CourseService.ts. All right, from here we need to return the URL. So we did not return the URL from here. Okay, now let's go back to add course component.ts. From there, I'm going to remove this console.log statement and let's uncomment this line. Let's save the changes. Let's go back to our application. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to delete this course. Okay, now we are going to create that course again. So let's click on this add course button. Again, I'm going to copy the title and the description. So I'll copy the description first. I'll paste it here. Let's copy the title and let's paste it here. Let's say author is John Doe. Price is 49.99, and let's select the image. And let's click on this create course button. And now the course is created and you can also see the image of that course. And now if we go to our database, there again you will see an entry, and here you can also see the image URL. Okay, so this image has been uploaded to Firebase storage and we are using the URL of that uploaded image. And we are using this value as the ID of our course. So if I open the developer tools again, and if we go to Redux, and currently if we check the state, so let me move it a little bit up, and if we check the state, the course's state, there if you see the ID of the course which is being rendered in the UI, that ID is same as this value. So we are using this value as the ID of the course. Now what I also want is I want to show the loading indicator. So for that, let's go to our course effect.ts. So here, before we are going to send a request, we are going to dispatch the set loading action. So here, let's also go ahead and let's inject an instance of store. Okay, so it is going to be of type store, and we also need to import it. And here, let's also specify the type as app state. And now using this store, before we are sending the request, here we are going to say this dot store dot dispatch, and from here we want to dispatch setIsLoading action, and we need to call it as a function. And with this we also need to dispatch a payload where we want to have a value property, and here I'm going to set the value to true in order to show the loading indicator. And once the course is successfully created, inside this map operator, we are going to hide the loading indicator. So here I'm going to set the value to false. And if some error has occurred while creating the course, at that time also, we want to hide the loading indicator. So here also I'm going to set it to false. With this, let's save the changes and let's try to create one more course. I'll close this here. Let's create a new course. So for that, let's again go back to Notepad. From here, I'm going to copy the title of the course. I'll paste it here. Let me copy the description of the course and I'll paste it inside this description field. Let's say author is Jane Smith. Price is 59.99. And let's also select the image for the course. And let's click on this Create Course button. So you can see it is showing the loading indicator, and once the course is created, that loading indicator is hidden and the course which we have created, that is also being displayed here. Now you might say why it is showing only one course in the UI when we have two courses in this courses collection. The reason for that is once a course is created, we are setting the course state to that course. Currently, we are not reading all the courses from database. That we are going to do in our next lecture. So this is all from this lecture. If you have any questions from this lecture, then feel free to ask it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.